By political analyst Karel Vereycken, based in Paris. Hello there, Karel. The European Union has followed the U.S. in imposing several rounds of sanctions on Russia, exacerbating an energy crisis. What has the EU gained from its sanctions and what does it lose?
Well, first it should be stressed that these sanctions aim to inflict suffering on the Russian population and bleed Russia. These sanctions are both immoral and inefficient. In my view, lifting the sanctions would contribute much more to end the war than by imposing them. Now, in terms of impact, even yesterday the IMF came out saying that the consequences of the sanctions are much more harsh for the Western economies than for Russia. According to the IMF, for the EU, a total shutdown of Russian gas supply would provoke a drop of GDP of at least 3%. And for the most vulnerable EU countries like Hungary, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic, it would plunge by 6% and it would plunge the whole region into a recession. For Italy, it would be, which is already in a precarious financial debt situation, the drop would be more than 5%. While on the other side, according to the IMF, the IMF now have to recognize that for Russia, the impact will be much lesser. It will reduce growth, but it will have a minor impact. And for Ukraine, of course, the GDP is set to fall by 45% this year. Now, the reasons Russia is better resisting, they are simple. Who has the gas? Who has the oil? Who has the key raw materials or the food for the physical economy? Who is building nuclear power plants in foreign countries? It is Russia and not the EU. And that teaches us all a lesson. Physical economy is important. Russia has a very strong ruble right now and actually increased its profits from gas and oil. So at the end of the day, the big loser, and some even say that the secret aim of the Ukraine war is to break especially Germany, but because it is a key country for the Eurasian integration, but the big loser in this conflict is the EU and the European nations.
Well, Karel, the U.S. Deputy Treasury Secretary is meeting EU officials to discuss ways to step up sanctions on Russia. Can the EU afford tougher sanctions on Russia's energy, especially considering the heat wave on the continent?
Well, I think it will not go very far because, as I said before, 100% cut would mean a full-scale recession. Right now, there are many countries which politically are already revolting against these measures. You can name Hungary, but also Spain, Portugal, Greece, and even France. They called Brussels and said, we cannot take this under these, as conditions are completely unworkable. In the back rooms, many people realize that the EU has become a ship of fools, which is adopting policies which are unworkable. Also, the rise of the energy and food prices and the cost of the so-called green transition towards less efficient energy is provoking already popular revolts, such as in the Netherlands, where the farmers are defending their productive agriculture. Also, the rise of the interest rates to fight inflation. This will create debt situations where bankruptcies will become rampant. With an empty toolbox and no money, the Eurozone is considered increasingly in big danger. And the heat of the financial meltdown could be much more hotter than the physical heat of the summer period.
Well, what do you think are the biggest challenges on implementing a 15% gas cut plan?
Well, it's very nice to talk about that in the summer. If we have it in a winter period, this means a shutdown of industry, shutdown of agriculture. It's just not workable. We should have an independent foreign policy, and that means becoming independent of a financial system which has become a private world government. And I think it's only what the Schiller Institute calls a new Bretton Woods, which would be organized with the consent of all major world powers, which could stop hyperinflation, stop the war. We could work out long-term win-win agreements for food and energy, and we could currencies as the dollar should really become currencies for mutual development and not tools for imperial domination. And that's the real challenge, both for Europe, the United States, and the rest of the world. If we do that, we can organize a peaceful coexistence on this planet. And if we fail, we will open the gates for the horsemen of the apocalypse.
Oh, thank you very much. That's our political analyst, Karel Vereycken, live for us in Paris. Appreciate it. You're watching The World Today. Still